I need to get something off my chest, something I've never told anyone before, not even my closest friends. It's a secret that has haunted me for years, casting a shadow over every family gathering, every smile shared with my parents, and every memory of my childhood. The burden of this secret has weighed on me so heavily that I often find myself lying awake at night, replaying that one moment over and over in my mind, wishing I could turn back time and unhear what I did. But there's no going back. Once you know something like this, it changes you. It changes everything. I was 15 years old when I discovered the secret. It was the middle of the night, and the house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. My parents had gone to bed hours earlier, and I was supposed to be asleep too. But like most teenagers, my sleep schedule was erratic, and I found myself wide awake, scrolling through my phone under the covers. I had been texting a friend, gossiping about school and complaining about homework, when I heard something that made me freeze. At first, it was just a faint murmur, a low, almost inaudible sound coming from down the hall. I couldn't make out the words, but I recognized the voices. It was my parents, and they were talking in their bedroom. Nothing unusual about that, I thought. They often stayed up late talking, discussing work, or planning our next family vacation. But something about the tone of their voices made me pause. There was a tension there, an edge to their words that sent a chill down my spine. I turned off my phone, plunging the room into darkness, and strained to hear what they were saying. The more I listened, the more I realized that this wasn't just a normal conversation. They were arguing. My mom's voice was sharp, almost angry, while my dad's was low and pleading. I couldn't make out everything, but the snippets I caught were enough to make my heart race. "She deserves to know," my mom said, her voice rising in pitch. "You can't keep this from her forever." "I'm begging you," my dad replied, his voice cracking with emotion. "Please, let it go, for her sake, for our sake." I had never heard my dad sound like that before. He was always so calm, so in control. Hearing him like this, so desperate, was unsettling. I felt a knot forming in my stomach, a sense of dread creeping over me. What were they talking about? What did my mom think I needed to know? I knew it was wrong to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help myself. My curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself slipping out of bed, moving silently across the room to the door. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob, but then I took a deep breath and slowly turned it, opening the door just a crack. The hallway was dark, but a sliver of light spilled out from under my parents' bedroom door at the end of the hall. I could hear their voices more clearly now, and I crept closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "I can't believe you kept this from me all these years," my mom said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "How could you lie to me like this?" "I didn't lie," my dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just didn't tell you the whole truth." "The whole truth?" my mom scoffed. "You have a daughter, John, a daughter you've never mentioned, never acknowledged. How is that not lying?" I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. A daughter? My dad had another daughter? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? A misunderstanding? But the pain in my mom's voice, the desperation in my dad's, told me this was no joke. This was real. "I was young," my dad said, his voice full of regret. "It was a mistake, a stupid, careless mistake. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. By the time I met you, it was too late. I didn't know how to tell you." My mom was silent for a moment, and I could almost feel the weight of her disappointment through the closed door. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, but no less pained. "And what about her?" she asked. "Does she know about us? About me? About Lily?" Lily. My name. Hearing it made my stomach turn. I was part of this, somehow. My entire world was being turned upside down, and I had no idea what to do. I wanted to burst into the room, demand answers, but I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, rooted to the spot by the shock of what I was hearing. "She knows about you," my dad said, his voice heavy with guilt. "She's always known, but she's never met you, never asked to. She's never wanted to be a part of our lives." There was another long silence, and I could hear my mom trying to hold back tears. I had never heard her cry before. Not like this. It was as if everything she believed in, Everything she thought she knew about our family had been ripped away from her in an instant. "How do we tell Lily?" she finally asked, her voice barely audible. "How do we tell her that she has a sister she's never met? How do we explain why we've kept this from her?" My dad didn't answer right away, and when he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "I don't know," he said. "I don't know if we can." I couldn't listen anymore. My head was spinning, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I backed away from the door, my hands shaking, and stumbled down the hall to my room. I barely made it to my bed before my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the mattress, curling up into a ball. I felt like I was going to be sick. My dad had another daughter. A daughter who knew about us, who knew about me, but had never wanted to be a part of our lives. The thought made me feel hollow, like there was a gaping hole in my chest. I had always been close to my parents, always thought we were a happy, normal family, but now everything felt like a lie. I lay there for what felt like hours, my mind racing, trying to process what I had just heard. How could my dad keep something like this from us, from me? And who was this other daughter? What was she like? Did she look like me? Did she hate me? Did she resent the life I had, the family she was never a part of? Eventually, exhaustion took over and I drifted into a fitful sleep, my dreams filled with shadows and whispers, my dad's voice echoing in my head. When I woke the next morning, the sunlight streaming through the window felt harsh, almost cruel. The world outside was bright and warm, but inside, I felt cold, numb. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to confront my parents, to demand answers, but I was too scared. What if they were angry that I had been eavesdropping? What if they told me something even worse? I couldn't bear the thought of it, so I did the only thing I could think of. I pretended everything was normal. I went through the motions of getting ready for school, avoiding my parents as much as possible. I didn't trust myself to talk to them without breaking down, without letting on that I knew their secret. My mom called out to me as I was leaving, asking if I wanted breakfast, but I just mumbled something about being late and hurried out the door. The walk to school felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream. The sounds of the neighborhood, the chirping of birds, the distant hum of traffic, all felt muted, like I was hearing them from underwater. I kept replaying the conversation in my head over and over, trying to make sense of it. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. At school, I could barely concentrate. My friends noticed that something was off, but I just brushed them off, saying I didn't sleep well. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. How could I tell them what I had overheard? How could I explain that my entire life had been turned upside down in the span of a few minutes? The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions, trying to act like everything was normal. But inside, I was falling apart. I avoided my parents as much as possible, slipping out of the house early in the morning and coming home late, claiming I had study groups or extracurricular activities. I couldn't bear to look them in the eye, couldn't face the truth that had been thrust upon me. But the truth has a way of catching up with you, no matter how hard you try to avoid it. One evening, about a week after I overheard the conversation, my mom cornered me in the kitchen as I was trying to sneak out the back door. She looked tired, her eyes red and puffy, like she hadn't slept in days. "Lily," she said softly, her voice filled with a kind of quiet desperation that made my heart ache. "We need to talk." I felt a lump form in my throat, and I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. I knew what she wanted to talk about, but I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. But there was no escaping it now. The moment I had been dreading had finally arrived. I nodded, slowly, avoiding her gaze, and followed her into the living room. My dad was already there, sitting on the couch with his hands clasped together, his knuckles white from the pressure. He looked up as we entered, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and sorrow that made my chest tighten. This was it. There was no turning back now. My mom sat down next to him and gestured for me to sit across from them. I hesitated for a moment before sinking into the armchair, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. The silence in the room was suffocating, heavy with unspoken words and hidden truths. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and oppressive, pressing down on me from all sides. "Lily," my dad began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something we need to tell you. something that we've kept from you for a long time. I felt a surge of anger rise up in me, hot and sudden. They had kept this from me, lied to me, for my entire life. How could they? How could they pretend everything was normal when there was this huge secret lurking in the shadows? But I bit my tongue, forcing myself to stay silent. I needed to hear them out, to hear the truth from their own mouths. My mom took a deep breath, reaching out to take my dad's hand. "Lily," she said gently, "your father and I, we've made mistakes. We haven't been completely honest with you, and for that, we're truly sorry." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "What kind of mistakes?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. My dad looked down at his hands, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world was resting on them. "When I was young, before I met your mother, I was in a relationship with someone else. It wasn't serious, just a fling, but she got pregnant." The words hung in the air like a lead weight, sinking into my chest and pulling me down with them. I had known this was coming. I had overheard them talking about it, but hearing it out loud made it all the more real. My dad had another child, a child who wasn't my mom's, who wasn't part of our family. My mind was racing, trying to process what he was saying. "She decided to keep the baby," my dad continued, his voice cracking with emotion. "But we agreed that it would be best if I wasn't involved. I was young and stupid, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But looking back, I know I made a terrible mistake. I should have been there for her, for my daughter." The word daughter felt like a knife to the heart. My dad had another daughter, a sister I had never known existed. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I had always been an only child, always thought I was my parents' one and only. But now I wasn't so sure. What did this mean for us? For our family? "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Why did you keep this from me?" My mom squeezed my dad's hand, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We wanted to protect you, Lily. We thought it would be easier if you didn't know. We didn't want to burden you with this." I shook my head, unable to comprehend what they were saying. "But I deserved to know," I said, my voice rising in pitch. "I'm not a child anymore. You should have told me the truth." "We know," my dad said, his voice full of regret. "We should have told you sooner. We were wrong to keep this from you. But please, Lily, try to understand. We were scared. We didn't know how you would react." I felt a tear slip down my cheek, and I quickly wiped it away, not wanting them to see how much this was affecting me. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and I could feel the tears coming faster now, no matter how hard I tried to hold them back. My mom reached out to me, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lily, we love you more than anything in this world. Please don't ever doubt that. This doesn't change how we feel about you. You're our daughter, our everything." "But what about her?" I asked, my voice cracking. "What about this other daughter? Do you love her too? Did you ever try to find her?" My dad's face crumpled, and he let out a shaky breath. I don't know her, Lily. I never met her. She was raised by her mother, and we never had any contact. I don't even know if she knows I exist. But not a day goes by that I don't think about her. I regret not being there for her, and I regret not telling you sooner. But she's a stranger to me, and to you, a stranger. The word felt cold and distant, and it did little to soothe the turmoil inside me. I had a sister out there, somewhere in the world, and yet she was a stranger to me, someone I had never met, never even known about until now. The thought made my heart ache in ways I couldn't describe. I stared at my parents, the people I had trusted and loved my whole life, and felt a wave of sadness wash over me. They had kept this secret for so long, and in doing so, they had created a chasm between us that I wasn't sure could ever be bridged. I wanted to forgive them, to tell them that everything would be okay, but the words wouldn't come. I was too hurt, too confused. After what felt like an eternity of silence, I finally spoke, my voice small and shaky. I need some time to process this. I don't know what to think right now." My mom nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Of course, Lily. Take all the time you need. We're here for you whenever you're ready to talk." I stood up, feeling like the weight of the world was pressing down on me, and walked out of the room. I didn't look back, didn't say anything else. I just needed to be alone. I needed to think, to sort through the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I felt like I was in a daze, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. My sister, a sister I had never known existed. What was she like? Did she look like me? Did she know about me? And if she did she hate me? I reached my room and closed the door behind me, leaning against it as I tried to catch my breath. The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in on me as the reality of what I had just learned began to sink in. I had always been close to my parents, always felt like we were a tight-knit family, but now everything felt different. There was a distance between us, an invisible barrier that I didn't know how to break down. I sank down onto my bed, burying my face in my hands as the tears finally came, hot and fast. I cried for what felt like hours, my sobs muffled by the pillow I pressed against my face. I cried for the sister I never knew, for the family I thought I had, for the lies that had been hidden from me for so long. I cried until I had no more tears left to shed, until I was so exhausted that I could barely keep my eyes open. When I finally fell asleep, my dreams were filled with shadows and whispers, with the face of a girl I had never met, yet felt so familiar. I dreamed of a sister who had been kept from me, a sister who might hate me for the life I had, the family she had never known. And when I woke the next morning, the sun streaming through the window, the weight of it all still lingered, heavy and suffocating. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I could barely bring myself to look at my parents, let alone talk to them. The distance between us grew, an unspoken tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. Every time I looked at them, all I could see were the lies, the secrets they had kept from me. I felt betrayed, like the foundation of my entire life had been ripped out from under me. My friends noticed that something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth. How could I explain that the family I had always thought was so perfect, so loving, was built on a foundation of lies? How could I tell them that I had a sister I had never met, a sister who might not even know I existed? It was too much to process, too much to share. I spent most of my time alone, avoiding my parents, avoiding everyone. I would leave the house early in the morning and come home late, wandering around aimlessly just to avoid being at home. The once warm and welcoming house now felt cold, like the walls themselves were closing in on me. I didn't know what to do, how to move forward. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. My parents tried to reach out to me, to talk to me, but I shut them out. I couldn't bear to hear any more lies, any more half-truths. I needed time to think, to sort through the chaos in my mind, but no matter how much time passed, the confusion and hurt didn't go away. If anything, it only grew stronger. A few weeks later, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in my room, staring at my reflection. My face looked the same, but I felt like a completely different person. The girl I saw in the mirror was a stranger, just like the sister I had never met. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been living a lie my entire life, that everything I thought I knew was wrong.
In a moment of desperation, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Without giving myself time to second guess, I hit the call button. The phone rang several times before a familiar voice answered on the other end. Lily, is everything okay? It was my best friend, Emma. She was the one person I knew I could always count on no matter what. She had been my rock for as long as I could remember, and right now I needed her more than ever. No, I said, my voice trembling. Nothing's okay, Emma. Can we talk? Of course, she replied without hesitation. Do you want to meet up somewhere? I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, can you come over? I need to get out of the house. I'll be there in 15, she said, her voice filled with concern. Hang in there, okay? I hung up the phone and sat down on the edge of my bed, my heart racing. I didn't know how I was going to explain everything to Emma, but I knew I couldn't keep it bottled up inside any longer. The weight of the secret was too much for me to carry on my own. When Emma arrived, she didn't ask any questions. She just hugged me tightly, letting me know that she was there for me. We walked to a nearby park, finding a quiet spot to sit on a bench away from the few people who were out enjoying the sunny afternoon. I took a deep breath, staring at the ground as I began to speak. Emma, there's something I need to tell you. Something that's been eating me up inside. She listened quietly as I told her everything. about the conversation I had overheard, about my parents' confession, and about the sister I had never known. I expected her to be shocked, to maybe even judge me for not knowing sooner. But when I finally finished, she just reached out and took my hand in hers. "Lily, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said softly. "I can't imagine how hard this must be for you, but you're not alone. I'm here for you, no matter what." Her words brought a fresh wave of tears to my eyes, and I squeezed her hand tightly. "I just don't know what to do, Emma. I feel so lost. I don't even know if I want to meet her. My sister, I mean. What if she hates me? What if she wants nothing to do with me?" Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully before she responded. "Lily, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not have all the answers right now, but you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know your sister, even if it's scary. And if she doesn't want to meet you, well, at least you'll know you tried." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I had been so caught up in my own fear and uncertainty that I hadn't even considered what my sister might be feeling. If I was in her shoes, wouldn't I want to know the truth too? The thought of reaching out to her terrified me, but the idea of never knowing her was even worse. I knew Emma was right. I had to at least try, but the question was, how? "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know anything about her, where she lives, or if she even knows I exist." Emma squeezed my hand again, giving me a reassuring smile. "You don't have to figure it all out right now. Take it one step at a time. Maybe you could start by asking your parents for more information. I know it's hard, but they might be able to help." The thought of talking to my parents again filled me with dread, but I knew Emma was right. If I wanted to find my sister, I needed to know more. I had spent weeks avoiding them, letting the distance between us grow wider and wider, but now I knew that the only way to move forward was to face the truth head on. That evening, after Emma left, I found my parents in the kitchen preparing dinner together. They looked up when I walked in, a mixture of surprise and relief on their faces. I could see the tension in their shoulders, the worry in their eyes. They had been waiting for this moment just as much as I had. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice shaking slightly. I want to talk." They exchanged a glance before nodding, setting aside what they were doing and turning their full attention to me. My mom gestured to the table and we all sat down, the weight of the unspoken words heavy in the air. "I've been thinking," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady, "about everything you told me, and I want to know more. I want to know about my sister." My dad let out a shaky breath, his shoulders slumping in relief. "Lily, we're so glad you came to us. We've been hoping you'd want to talk, but we didn't want to push you." My mom reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "We'll tell you everything we know, sweetie. We'll help you in any way we can." They began to tell me more about my sister, her name, her age, and the little they knew about her life. It wasn't much, but it was more than I had before. They even showed me a few old photos they had managed to find tucked away in a dusty box in the attic. Seeing her face for the first time was like looking into a mirror. There was a resemblance between us that was impossible to deny. I could feel a connection even though we had never met. With my parents' help, I was able to track down more information about her. It took time, patience, and a lot of courage, but eventually I found her. She was living in a different state, far enough away that we had never crossed paths, but close enough that a meeting was possible. The day I reached out to her was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my life. I wrote and rewrote my message a dozen times before finally hitting send. And then I waited, my heart pounding in my chest for what felt like an eternity. When her response finally came, it was cautious, but curious. She had known about me, but like me, she hadn't known how to reach out or what to say. The uncertainty and fear I had felt for so long began to melt away, replaced by a sense of cautious hope. We exchanged messages for weeks, getting to know each other bit by bit. It wasn't easy and there were moments of awkwardness, but we both wanted to bridge the gap that had been created by years of secrets. Eventually, we decided to meet in person. The day of our meeting was a blur of emotions. I was nervous, excited, and terrified all at once. But when I finally really saw her standing in front of me, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She looked just like the pictures, but seeing her in person made everything real in a way that words and photos couldn't capture. We spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing stories. There was so much to catch up on, so much we had missed in each other's lives. But as we talked, I realized that it didn't matter how much time had passed. What mattered was that we were here now, that we had found each other despite everything. When the day finally came to an end and we said our goodbyes, I felt a sense of closure that I had known I needed. The hole in my heart that had been created by the secrets and lies was beginning to heal. Slowly but surely, reconnecting with my sister didn't erase the pain of the past, but it helped me understand that family is complicated, messy, and sometimes full of secrets, but it's also resilient, forgiving, and capable of healing, even after years of hurt. As I walked away from our meeting, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it one step at a time. I'd found my sister, and in doing so, I had found a part of myself that I didn't even know was missing. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole.